Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Rena, a urologist and pelvic surgeon. I'm glad you're here, and if this is your first time visiting, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up. Many of you have likely dealt with mud butt or noticed a sweaty feeling in the genital area, especially around the testicles, or may have even had a condition known as jock itch. So how can you prevent it? One option is using certain genital deodorant powders, which we'll discuss later in this video. But first, let's understand what jock itch actually is. Jock itch is a fungal infection that develops in areas where moisture tends to build up. It's caused by a fungus called Tinea cruris, sometimes referred to as ringworm, though it's not a worm at all. So how can you tell if you have jock itch? You might notice patches of skin that appear red or flaky, possibly with small blisters forming along the edges. It's usually quite itchy. Where does it show up? Most often in the groin, within skin folds, and sometimes on the inner thighs or even the buttocks. Is it something serious? If you've experienced it before, you already know. It's not dangerous, just uncomfortable and irritating. When you visit a doctor, they'll usually examine the area and may prescribe treatment. In some cases, they might take a small skin sample to send to a lab, but often a visual check is enough to identify it. Treatment typically includes antifungal creams. You'll need to clean the area well and apply the cream, usually twice a day, for a set period until it clears up. If your symptoms don't improve after about 2 weeks, it's important to follow up with your doctor. You can also find antifungal creams over the counter. When browsing at the pharmacy, look for ingredients like miconazole, clotrimazole, or terbinafine. And if you're unsure, don't hesitate to ask the pharmacist. They can guide you to the right product. So how can you stop jock itch from coming back? That brings us to genital deodorant powders. But before we go there, let's talk about one ingredient you may want to be cautious about: talc. What is talc exactly? It's made up of 3 minerals: magnesium, silicon, and oxygen. However, some naturally occurring talc is found near asbestos, which can lead to contamination. You may have heard of asbestos, as it has been linked to a lung condition called mesothelioma. So, has talc been connected to cancer? Studies have examined exposure to talc both with and without asbestos contamination, and overall, they have not found a strong or consistent link between talc and cancer in either form. However, the strongest connection seen in research with talc has been related to ovarian cancer. Some people have suggested there could be a similar link to testicular cancer, but the evidence hasn't supported that idea. So where does this information come from? In a 2019 review that looked at 30 different studies, researchers found that using talcum powder in the perineal area, which is the space between the genitals and the rectum, might be a possible contributor to ovarian cancer. That said, a larger study in 2020 followed about 250,000 women who used talcum powder in the genital area and found no clear association between talc use and ovarian cancer. The American Cancer Society reviewed all of this research and explained that because ovarian cancer is relatively rare, it's very difficult to determine whether there's a real risk tied to talcum powder use. There's also no solid evidence linking talc to testicular cancer. Still, because the connection remains uncertain, I usually suggest choosing powders that don't contain talc. These alternatives include cornstarch-based baby powder, tapioca powder, oat flour, or kaolin clay. In this video, I'll mainly focus on cornstarch-based powders. All of these work as drying agents, meaning they help absorb moisture and keep the area dry wherever they're applied. Now let's go over a few products that, honestly, I wasn't very familiar with before. The first one is Bozak Original Powder. This is a talc-free powder made with cornstarch and zinc oxide. It's a menthol-based product called the Original Scent, and it gives a cooling sensation when applied. It also has a strong, minty fragrance. Looking at the ingredients, you'll see cornstarch and zinc oxide, both of which help keep moisture under control. I often recommend zinc oxide creams for people dealing with skin irritation from urinary leakage. It's the same ingredient used in diaper rash creams. Another important ingredient here is miconazole nitrate, which is an antifungal medication similar to over-the-counter creams, but in this case, it's combined with a powder that cools and helps keep the area dry. Another nice feature is that this product is 100% vegan and cruelty-free. When you apply it, it comes out just like a regular powder. it can get a little messy, and as you rub it in, you'll notice it stays visible for a moment. The scent is quite strong, so you'll want to be sure you're comfortable with that minty, menthol-like smell. I believe they also offer a version without menthol, if you prefer something milder. The next product from Bozak Powder Cream is a cream. It goes on as a cream at first, but then it dries down into a powder-like finish. This one also has that same cool, minty menthol scent, but without the mess of sprinkling powder into your underwear or onto the area and having it scatter everywhere. It contains many of the same ingredients, including aloe vera to help soothe the skin. There's also some oat content which can help with drying, along with cornstarch and zinc oxide. I did try this myself, and now it has finally dried. You can see it's no longer wet. That said, I probably used a bit too much, so it took a little longer to dry than expected. I'd recommend applying a smaller amount than what I just showed. Alright, moving on to the next product, Dry Comfort Lotion. This one not only helps reduce sweating, but also prevents chafing and provides some deodorizing benefits. Its main ingredient is tapioca starch, which comes from the cassava plant and works as a drying agent to help control moisture. It's free from talc, gluten, and parabens, which is a plus. At the same time, it does include several ingredients like hemp, aloe, and tea tree oils. Interestingly, they also offer a version designed for women, which can be used under the breasts or on the thighs during running or extended physical activity. I actually tried the women's version as well. It has the same ingredients as the men's, and it went on very smoothly and dried quite quickly. Let me show you a small amount of the men's version. This time I'm using less. I'll rub it in and let it sit for a moment. You can already see it's drying pretty fast, but you still need to give it a few seconds. So if you plan to use something like this, just allow a little time for it to dry before getting dressed. Finally, last but not least, we have Johnson's Baby Powder. You'll want to make sure you're choosing the version made with pure cornstarch, since that means it's free from talc. These powders are very simple, mostly just cornstarch, and in some cases, like this one, a bit of vitamin E and aloe, though not all versions include those extras. You can even use plain cornstarch from the grocery store if you'd like. My whole family has used this, my 2 sons and my husband included, so it's something they're very familiar with. When I introduced these newer products, my husband was open to trying them, but he's been using baby powder most of his life. In general, this option can be a bit messy, but it smells pleasant, it's easy to use, and it's very affordable. As long as you're picking a talc-free version, it's a solid choice. According to him, there wasn't a huge difference between traditional baby powder and the other powder products when it came to staying dry. As for the cream-based products, some people say that if you've used talc powders before, these may not feel quite as drying. And that can be true for some of the non-talc options. From what I experienced though, they all performed fairly similarly in keeping the area dry. Personally, I prefer using a lotion that dries down. It's much less messy. You don't end up with powder everywhere that you have to clean up afterward. While I'm not a big fan of the menthol scent, if you do enjoy it, it adds a bit of freshness. The creams also include soothing ingredients like oils, which can be beneficial for the skin. At the end of the day, the best product is the one you're comfortable using and that works well for you. The goal is to keep the area dry so you can avoid issues like jock itch, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be quite bothersome. I hope you found this episode helpful, and as always, thank you for watching. Remember to take care of yourself because you truly deserve it.